I'm Brian Walt. I'm a rabbi. I was born in South Africa. The one thing I would love the committee to know is that the proposal this morning is not a proposal that is against hate. It is a proposal to deny the right to free expression for the Palestinians and their supporters to advocate for equal rights. As a South African, I saw how much the boycott and sanctions movement helped in changing South Africa. I lived under systemic discrimination. I've seen the same discrimination in Israel, and the people who are doing boycott are trying to end that discrimination. They're not anti-Israel, they're not anti-Israelis, they're not anti-Jews, they're anti the denial of human rights to all people.
If I could tell the committee one thing, I would tell them that I have organized a successful boycott against South Africa. So I know that this legislation will put a chilling impact on the kind of activities we took. Holding peaceful rallies, stockholder protests, engaging clergy, students, unions, and workers. Do not pass this legislation because it limits the right to protest and the freedom to make a change in the world for human rights. Thank you.
So I just want the committee to remember before they vote that the BDS is an anti-occupation, anti-oppression act, not anti-Semitic act. It's actually an act that is pro-justice. And I want them also to know that the Palestinian civil society gathered and made a global call to BDS. It is a nonviolent action to put pressure on the state of Israel. And this call came after years of failed negotiation to reach an agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. It is also due to the ongoing brutal Israeli occupations on every aspect of the Palestinian lives.
Hi, I'm Munir Germanus. I'm here to testify against this bill because I think it infringes on our rights and our First Amendment rights. My interest in this is because I was born in Jerusalem in 1948 in a house that my father had built. He had bought this land in 1932 and built a house on it. And during the 1948 war that resulted in the creation of the State of Israel, our family lost our home because we happened to be Christian and not Jewish.
Hi, I'm Nadia Ben Youssef. I direct the Adela Justice Project, which aims to transform American policy and practice on Israel-Palestine. And if I could say one thing to the committee today, it's one, certainly we have, there's a right to dissent, but I'm also more concerned about our commitment to learning and transforming the circumstances and the conditions that people are dissenting. So the illegal and prolonged military occupation of the West Bank and Gaza, the entrenched discrimination against Palestinian citizens of Israel, and of course the denial of the right of return of refugees. So I think if we prioritize and center the call and the pillars of the BDS movement and the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, we're a step closer to really transforming the reality on the ground.
I am Reverend Dr. Gary Shahinian. I'm a pastor in Worcester of Park Congregational Church. I'm an ordained United Church of Christ minister. I'm here to testify against the bill that's being put forward. My denomination, the United Church of Christ, at both the National General Synod level and at the Massachusetts Conference level, has passed boycott, divestment, and sanctions resolutions against the nation of Israel. We have done that because we have heard the cries of suffering of our Palestinian brothers and sisters in the Middle East. This bill that's being put forward now is anti-constitutional and anti-boycott. It will punish all institutions, including religious institutions that receive government funding, even for such things as missions, to support food pantries and homeless shelters. And so it's fundamentally anti-democratic, in my opinion.
My name is Joseph Gerson. To begin with, to say I've just been profoundly disappointed by some of the dishonesty involved in the early testimony here. Basically saying that the BDS campaign is focused on anti-Israeli approaches, that it's discriminatory, that it only applies to Israeli-backed companies. when in fact a boycott would apply to Caterpillar and other companies here in the United States that are helping to reinforce the occupation of Palestinian lands and the campaign to destroy the Palestinian people. I'm Jewish. I descend from a long line of rabbis. For me, the basic lessons coming out of the Holocaust are never again to anyone and never to participate in the crimes of silence, which is to say turning a blind eye to oppression that's happening next to you. And the reality, the very sad reality, is that in total violation of these lessons and the most fundamental moral laws of Judaism, the Israeli state has been in the process of destroying the Palestinian people. I've been to the region a number of times, met people, experienced racism from a number of Israel's leaders, and so on. I think the BDS campaign, what we're trying to do is to create the foundation both for Palestinian rights and for the long-term security and survival of both the Israeli and Palestinian people.
It's sort of a double point, I guess, that there are a lot of Jews who are critical of Israel. There are a lot of Jews in Israel who are critical of what the government does. And so it's not anti-Semitic or somehow bad to criticize Israel for what it does, and it has nothing to do with there being Jews. It's the actions that we object to.
My name is Lloyd, Fillion. I live in the south end of Boston. I'm here to oppose the bills before the committee because I think they are unconstitutional. They are trying to prohibit the exercise of the First Amendment through boycotts. They would be incredibly far-reaching. If I were an Iranian American and I did not want to do business with a Saudi firm, would I be told not to take state contracts? If I was South Korean and my mother had been a comfort woman, would I be forced to do business with a Japanese company headquartered in Japan? There are so many tensions around the world that Massachusetts legislature just can't deal with all of them. Plus, this is not the way to deal with political discord.
Hi, I'm John Roberts. For 32 years, I was executive director of the ACLU of Massachusetts. Spent my entire professional career defending the constitutional principles, particularly the First Amendment. And this legislation really violates very fundamental principles for which we've long fought. And so we're trying to protect here the right to boycott, a very fundamental right, used by the civil rights movement, used throughout the world, used by labor, and used within the Jewish community for many, many, many causes. And so that's the fundamental principle upon which we stand and for which we're fighting today.